All right, I'm making this video as a reply to a request. I don't remember the guy's name, but he wanted me to do a video specifically on a strider. So this is my favorite strider. I'm sure you guys have seen this lots on my Instagram page, and it was in my last video. This is something I always have in my pocket if I'm gonna do any kind of work. So it's in need of some maintenance. If you look at the tip, and I hope it's going to come out, if you look down here at the tip, you can see a few shiny areas. There are a couple of rolls in there. I think you can see a little bit more there too. There's some rolls in this edge that I need to fix, and I'm just gonna, the rest of this and the rest of the knife, this part here, it's in pretty good shape, so I'm just going to strop this part. I'm going to sharpen this part here. I'm probably going to start around 400 grit like I always do. That's just my preference. I talked about that in the other video. The damage isn't that bad. I might even be able to get away with starting even higher than that. But I'm just going to sharpen this, and I'm going to bring this all the way through to the 0.5 micron strops. Once I start stropping, I'm going to strop the entire edge. So I'm going to bring the entire edge back to that razor sharp point. Not that this is dull, but it could use some touching up. So I have my settings over here on a notepad, but I'm not going to put the notepad in the video because there's some information on there that I don't want on the video. The settings that I'm going to use today are going to be bottom slot here on the vise. I'm going to place this in here, and one thing to note, this is a 3/4 grind strider, so it's going to be a little bit easier for me to clamp this in here because there's this large flat portion, so I shouldn't have as much of the blade rocking back and forth, and the vise should get pretty tight on the entire surface here. So I'm going to set this in here. I'm going to use this grind line to make sure that the knife runs parallel to the jaw, the top of the jaws, the vise, but that's not necessary. It's just something that I prefer to do. I'm not so certain that it helps more or it hurts anything. It's just the way I prefer to do it. So the next setting is going to be A 0.75, and for my notes that means it's going to be on the A and then 3/4 of the way to the B. So I'm going to set it in here and eyeball it, make sure I'm keeping this parallel, and now I'm going to tighten the top portion, and I'm going to tighten the bottom of the vise. I'm going to wiggle it, make sure it's in there good and tight. Now that it's in here good and tight, I'm going to pull out my angle cube, and I'm going to try to make sure that my blade is sitting perpendicular to this base here. So I don't want the knife to be rocked one way or the other, because that's going to throw off my bevels here, and I don't want that. So turn the angle cube on, and then I'm going to zero my angle cube, and once it's zeroed, I'm going to, it's taking a second. Once it's zeroed, I'll sit it up here on the edge, and it's not going to stay because it's, like I said, this is a 3/4 grind knife. So I'm going to have to hold this. I'm going to sit it on top of the vise jaw. It's reading 5.50, 5.80 degrees. I'm going to sit it on the other side, and ideally I want these two to be as close as possible. It looks like it's reading 7.6, so I'm going to have to do some work to get this evened out. Well, actually, I think I must have hit something. Let me turn this off and turn it back on. Okay, it's zeroed again, and I'm going to measure. All right, it looks like it's at 5.6, and this side here looks like it's at 4.4. Well, now it's saying 5.05, 5.05, 5.25. So I'm going to come back, double check this side. This looks like it's 5.55. One more time on this side. It looks like it's reading, now it looks like it's reading 4.5. Let's do it one more time. And this is 5.5. So that's not close enough for me. I prefer it to be a little bit closer. I'm gonna tighten this up some, and maybe that'll shift it just enough in here. And I don't think it shifted it that much because it's reading 5.3. And this side is reading, well, actually, I think that might be okay. Let's see. 4.7. And this side is reading 5.4. Yeah, I think that's going to be close enough. So once I've got that set, I'm going to do just like I've tried to show you on my last video. I've got my 1000 grit stone here. Let me get that back. 1000 grit stone here. I'm going to put just one of them on the right side. I'm right-handed, so that's why I start with the right side. My marker is not dried out anymore, so I'm gonna just draw along this bevel. Oop. Don't worry about marking on the knife because rubbing alcohol will take this off, so you'll be fine. That looks like it's set. I'm going to once again make sure that this stone is parallel to the jaw, the vise of the wicked edge. I'm going to try to do a course adjustment and get this set down here to 18 degrees. That's my next setting on my paper, is 18 degrees. So I'm gonna move it to about what is marked as 18, and that's something I didn't cover. I've talked with one of my friends about this. The markings on here are approximate, but they're not 100%. So use this, but verify with an angle cube. So I've got it moved to where I think 18 degrees is. I'm going to set this here on top of the stone. Again, I try to make sure that it's flush as possible, just the way I do it. I'm going to lay this on here, and that's reading 19.20. So I'm going to loosen this. I'm going to slide it in roughly 1 notch. That got me to 18.10. Let's see what it is after I tighten this. Looks like that's still 18.10. 18.20. So I'm going to loosen this thumb screw here, and I'm going to use the fine adjustment to adjust out the last little bit. So I'm going to have to come this way, it looks like. I'm going to lift it up, lay it back down so I can get another reading. Looks like I need to go a little bit more. Lift it up, lay it back down. It's 18.10. Lift it up. All right, that's 18 degrees. Well, it's fluctuating on me a little bit. Sometimes you have to give it a second. So that looks like it's 18.05. So I'm going to give it another little turn and put it back down. That looks like it's 18 degrees exactly. So I'm going to leave that where it's at. I'm going to come over to the other side here, do the same exact thing. I'm going to adjust this to right roughly where 18 degrees is marked at on the base of the wicked edge. And once I get that set, I'll be able to put the angle gauge back on to the stone. Again, at the top, flush. I'm going to, again, make sure it's parallel to the vise. It looks like it's reading 17.6. So again, the base is a rough estimate of what the angle is. So I always suggest that if you're going to have a wicked edge, you should have an angle cube just to make sure that what angle you think you've set is the angle that you actually have set. So I'm going to adjust this, lift it up, place it back down. It's at 17.85. So it needs to still be decreased some. That is 17.9. That is still reading 17.9. All right, let's see. That looks like that's 18 degrees. So now that I've got that set, I'm going to tighten the thumb screw. We're good to go. I am going to turn this off first of all. I'm going to take my stone. I'm going to run it along just the part where, like I said, I want to work. And I want to see where it's removing material from. Now, when I look at that, I don't really think that's exactly where I want to be. Let's see. Maybe it's not too bad. I don't know. Let's see. Let me get you guys a close up. You can see it's removing kind of at the bottom down towards the shoulder here. I want to possibly move that up some. So in order to do that, I'm going to place my ruler back in here. I'm going to loosen my clamp, loosen the bottom first. That'll relieve some of the tension. And I'm going to bring this back some. I'm going to bring it back to, let's say, A and then the halfway mark between A and B. So 8.5 as I would note it on my the system that I use. So I'm going to make sure it's in there tight again. It looks okay. I am going to get my angle cube out yet again, if I can find it. Once I have my angle cube out, I need to zero the angle cube again. I want to double check again to make sure that my angles are okay. All right, it's reading 5.05 on that side. And let's see. It's reading 4.6 on this side. So again, I'm going to give it a little bit of a turn down here and a little bit of a turn here. See if I can get it to shift over some. Now it's reading 5.25, so that's what I wanted. And this side here is reading, hold on, let's see. This side here looks like it's right at about 5 degrees. So I'm gonna say that's close enough. I'm gonna try another, well, let me double check this angle too. I'm gonna place it back up here, flush, and I am going to double check to make sure that our angle is 18 degrees. Let's see, it looks like it might have increased a half a degree. So I'm going to adjust the coarse adjustment. It's gotten a little bit out of the specification I set it to. So I'm going to move it in one. Actually, I'm going to move it out. All right, that's 19 degrees. That's too far. All right. Now we're going to adjust the fine adjustment. Uh-oh. And it looks like we don't have enough yet. All right, that's still not enough adjustment. This worm gear is almost all the way out. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back this up some. And then what I'm gonna do is adjust the coarse adjustment again. So that way I have more range of motion on my fine adjustment. So that looks like it's at about 18.7. It's a little bit more than I would like to adjust on the coarse, on the fine setting, but let's see what we can do. So going to adjust the fine setting now. And it looks like it's at 18.2, 18.15, and that is 18. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to rub this again, and I think you can see now we are rubbing pretty close to the top, to the middle, to the top portion of the bevel, which is what I want to do. So I'm going to cut it there. This is already 17 minutes. I'll come back in just a second. Okay, I have sharpened just the tip. With the 1000 grit, I decided to go with 1000 instead of going down to 400 like I mentioned. Didn't take long. You can see here that Sharpie is still back here on this portion. However, up here at the front, I have a 1000 grit finish. And I'll show you, and you can see that all of the Sharpie has been removed evenly. So I did maintain the angle, which is why you need to record your settings so you can make sure that you're hitting the same setup every single time. I'll kind of show you where the sharpness is at this point. Now, keep in mind that I'm just going to sharpen this front portion here, or I already have sharpened this front portion with 1000 grit. I'm going to use the ceramics, then the strops. Once I start stropping, I'm going to strop the entire edge, but this is how sharp it is now. Uh-oh. Let's see. So you can see it's sharp, but it's not as sharp as it could be, especially back here. But I'm just going to strop that back part, and you'll see how I can restore this edge here even with just a strop. Okay, this is my knife after I have sharpened the edge here and I've stropped the entire edge. And I think that you can see there's a mirror finish all the way down this bevel. So I'll kind of show you where it's at sharpness wise. So you can see earlier it wouldn't cut really well back here, but you can see it just slices right through. I can lay the paper flat on here and it cut. I'm happy. It's back, it's fixed. The damage was up here and everything is now back and repaired. As you can see, part of the downside of this system is it took me about 16 minutes to get things exactly dialed in and set up. Setup can be a little bit troublesome. I know the newer system kind of takes into account or helps rectify some of those issues with the easy clamp system that, you know, make sure the blade doesn't tilt one way or the other. The arms, I know that the adjustments are a little bit easier, no tools needed. So just something to think about. But at the end of the day, you can see you get an outstanding product. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next video.